Good afternoon. I'm Hugh Harris and would like to welcome you to the pre-launch press briefing for STS-1. I'd like to introduce the people taking part in our pre-launch press briefing this afternoon. Going from your left to right is John Yardley, Associate Administrator for Space Transportation Systems at NASA headquarters, Donald K. Slayton, Manager of the Orbiter Flight Test Program from the Johnson Space Center, George Page, who is Manager of STS Processing and our Launch Director for the Kennedy Space Center, Dr. Craig Fisher, who is the Crew Surgeon from JSC, and Captain Alan Duff, who is the U.S. Air Force Weather Officer at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. And we'll begin with Mr. Yardley.
Well, it looks like everything's going pretty well. I'll let George fill you in on the details, but I have a feeling we're going to go tomorrow.
Thank you. Deke?
George is going to talk about the vehicle, and I'm in charge of the weather, I guess, and the best we can tell, that's supposed to be great tomorrow also. So I think we're go.
Thank you, George.
Who can I pass it on to now? Now, we're in good shape. As you can see, we're sitting at T-minus 12 hours doing what we do best, and that's holding. And right now it looks like we have no problems that'll keep us from picking up the count at 4:20 this afternoon. And hopefully from there we're going to follow pretty much what's in your press kit. And I'm not going to run over the details of that. If you have any questions, I'll answer them later. I think the whole launch team feels real good about the operation where we stand now, and I share Mr. Yardley's opinion. I think we're going to make it tomorrow, too. That's all I have.
Thank you, George. Dr. Fisher?
The crew's health is excellent, and they couldn't be more ready for the flight.
Okay, thank you. Captain Duff?
The weather tomorrow should be very much like today, excellent for STS-1. There is a possibility of some low fog early in the morning. It should dissipate right after scheduled launch time. It should be so low that as not to interfere with the scheduled mission time.
Okay, thank you. We're ready for questions. Please wait for the microphone in each section to get to you. If I have not called on you by name, which is likely, please give your name and affiliation for the benefit of the people who are listening at other centers. Okay, are there any questions? Okay, we'll have Ed Pipp in the first row here from the Detroit News. Okay, people in the aisles, if you would please get out of the aisles so that the people with the microphones can get to the people asking questions, we would appreciate it. Ed Pipp.
Captain Duff, what's the weather at Edwards and Northrop Strip?
The weather at Edwards is mostly clear skies. There are some very high, very thin clouds. Should not pose a problem at landing time. The winds are variable at 6 knots right now, and we expect them to become westerly at 12 with occasional gusts to 24 tomorrow.
Well, aren't those winds a little more than they want for landing at Edwards, 24?
I'll pass that to Mr. Slayton.
Well, our mission rule is 20 knots headwind, and that's within those kind of limits. Crosswinds are a bigger problem than headwinds, and we've got a lot of runways available to us out there we can shift to if the crosswind component gets too strong.
To sum it up then, the weather is good at both these other spots too, right?
Yes, sir. I didn't cover Northrop Strip, but Northrop Strip's weather is also good tomorrow. They are going to have a period of increasing clouds and very gusty winds on Saturday, however. But the weather for Friday is good.
Okay, there are any additional questions? In back of you in the East Center section.
Glenn Singer from the Palm Beach Post. Dr. Fisher, could you tell me how well the crew slept last night? Did they have any problem getting to sleep at such an early hour?
No, they've had no difficulty sleeping. As you know, we're sort of precessing the time that they go to sleep so that they're adjusted to the early morning launch. They've had no difficulty sleeping whatsoever.
And one other question to whomever. What kind of breakfast will they have prior to boarding the spacecraft?
That's got to be yours, Doctor.
Craig, you got the menu?
I don't have the menu in front of me, Deke. I thought maybe you might.
Well, normally it's steak and eggs and orange juice, and I presume that's what it'll be tomorrow.
We have a printed menu in the press center for anybody who wants to pick it up after the briefing. In the meantime, up in the back,
Fernando Alcalá from Televisa, Mexico. There is a rumor that the Columbia will land in New Mexico rather than in Edwards. What do you know about it?
Well, we have a plan to land in Northrop Strip, New Mexico, for a once-around abort situation. That's a case where we either don't have enough energy to get into an orbit we can stay in, or we have some systems problems that make it desirable to re-enter immediately. Two other cases where we might go into Northrop would be a contingency on orbit that forced us down someplace other than Edwards, and an end-of-mission case where the weather at Edwards was unacceptable for landing. Any of those three cases, we would go into Northrop Strip, New Mexico. Other than that, no.
okay, over on the east side, right behind the stick person, right behind you. Oh, okay. Down here in the front row, Rob Zaya from Channel 2.
Either for George Page or John Yardley, what do you consider the minimum requirements that would constitute a successful mission tomorrow?
John, you ought to handle that.
All three landing gears still being structurally right when it's on the runway after the flight.
Okay, are there any additional questions? You have to, we have one question way down here. Are there any over in this area? Okay. Let's have Bill Hines from the Chicago Sun-Times first, and then we'll
I
come
guess
down
this is
here.
Dr. Fisher. What time are you planning to turn them in tonight?
Deke, I really don't know the exact hour.
I don't either, Bill. We'll get that for you, but it's shortly. It's mid-afternoon because they have to get up around
1600.
1600.
4 p.m. local.
You're going to turn in at 4 p.m.?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, here in the front.
Okay, Anthony Cipriano, Simon & Schuster. I've heard a lot of talk over the last couple of days about cost effectiveness and payload boosting with expendable rockets versus the shuttle. And I'm wondering, as a space historian, do you feel that the public sufficiently understands that the purpose of the shuttle is to get people into space to work there? And as far as history is concerned, does anyone ask today how long or how much it took to cancel out polio? And did it matter if Columbus went on his voyage of discovery in 1492, 1493, or 1494? Anyone? Sorry about that, John.
Which of those 6 questions did you want?
Yeah, which one?
Well, I'm interested
I'll
in
take the
the
Columbus
perspective
one.
of history. And do you think the public really understands what the mission is?
I don't think the public fully recognizes the mission of the shuttle. I think probably the majority do look on it as a different kind of launch vehicle, hopefully a more economical one because of its reusability. But you're absolutely correct. Its real utility lies in its orbital flexibility, its ability to carry people, in fact, the need to carry people on every flight, a constant presence in space, and the terrific fallout of things that we'll learn to do in space that we'd never learned using expendable vehicles.
Okay, Justy, right in the back of you.
Yes, Tom Laurie, Heavy Metal Magazine. I'm interested in the radiators when they're deployed. How will the deploying go about? Will one door open, and then will another door open, and which will be turned on, and and I'm interested only in the first opening of the doors.
No, I'm not. I think we, let me take a shot at it. I don't have a copy of the flight plan here, but we do open up one door at a time. We open the latches first, make sure they work, and do deploy the radiators, and then we close the doors again almost immediately. And if George has the timeline here, he can give it to you. Assuming that all works properly, the latches work properly, we open them up and they stay open.
What is the angle fully open? Or is it variable?
No, it's not a variable, but I don't know what it is.
Okay, well...
it's over 90 degrees. But,
are there 4 separate doors?
Okay. In the west central section here.
Al Slegel, New York Daily News. We've got an untried system here. How would you assess the risk of this thing compared with previous missions with Apollo and other shots?
Well, I'll take a shot at that, and I'll let others take a shot at it. I don't believe the risk of the system is as great as, say, Apollo 11. It's probably greater than other previous first man flights simply because those other first man flights weren't manned on the first flight. However, this particular system and vehicle has been designed from the beginning with that in mind, and as such, I feel is much better, much more reliable for a first flight than any of the previous ones.
I agree with that, John.
Okay, we'll take in the central section here.
Yes, for me?
If the astronauts are unable to return safely to the Earth, are you considering to contact for emergency another space power?
I'm sorry, we didn't understand the question.
Yes, I repeat, I am TOPR for Space Information Belgium. If the astronauts are unable to return safely to the Earth, are you considering to contact for emergency another space power?
Oh, I understand that one. Okay, yeah, I think your question is if we end up with a inability to re-enter, do we have any backup or contingency plans to call for help from some other nation? Is that correct? I think we do not. We have a great level of confidence in this machine. We've got triple redundancy, quadruple redundancy in almost everything. And I don't think any of us have any reservation at all. We're going to get this vehicle re-entered when we want to re-enter it safely.
Okay, Dan Fiorucci.
For John Yardley, earlier in the week you estimated the chances of the shuttle taking off on Friday at 1 in 4. That was when the countdown just began. Knowing what you know now, what would you estimate the odds at?
That particular estimate was based on weather. If the weather prediction holds, and you all are just as good as I am about guessing that, it's going to be better than that. If we had the normal weather statistically that we have at this time of the year, it would still be about 1 in 4. I think it's going to be about 80% right now.
Okay, right here.
Michael Cornelis, La Conquête de l'Air from Belgium. I would like to ask Mr. Slayton a question. A few days ago, people were speaking that if wind would be beyond 12 knots, the space shuttle wouldn't take off. I learned afterwards that it was not concerning this takeoff, but well the landing, because the shuttle would have no power and would glide to a landing. So I would like to ask you, this time you can wait until you have the best weather conditions, but when the space shuttle is going to be used regularly, you won't be able always to have nice weather at the landing site. What are you going to plan then? To deorbit later, or to change the landing site, or?
No, our initial flight, we just want to be very conservative, and we have set some wind limits that are considerably lower than you would operate with operationally. Operationally, we would go with 20-knot crosswinds and about 30-knot headwinds. And we probably would do better than that once we get smarter about the machine. Also, of course, we're developing an auto land capability so that once we get operational, we can, in fact, land in almost any kind of weather in terms of cloud cover and visibility.
Thank you very much.
Okay, in the west central part here.
Jamie Matthews, The Gazette. Doctor, in this mission, the astronauts were in limited quarantine before the flight. Will this be a regular feature of all shuttle missions, just this one, or the first few test flights?
The modified quarantine will probably be in effect through OFT, the first 4 missions. And after that, we'll take a hard look at it and may possibly modify it again. But we are going to continue the modified quarantine probably through the first 4.
In that same area.
George Alexander, Los Angeles Times, for John Yardley or Deke Slayton. If you get the guys up at the time that you plan now, but a hold develops after that time, after they've suited up and after they're in the spacecraft, what is really the effective closing time of the launch window? It obviously won't be a full 6 hours.
We've established a 20-hour crewed day limit. We don't want to keep the guys up over 20 hours after they've arisen. We've got a little option to play with there. We can do some real-time flight planning adjustments, but not too much. So in round numbers, it's about 3 hours. And if we exceed that after we get the crew on board, we're probably going to consider regrouping.
So if by roughly 10 o'clock, 10 a.m., roughly,
yes,
you haven't gone by then, you would consider calling it off for the day?
We'd either do that or we would start doing some adjustments in our flight planning and see if we could figure out a way to shorten up the day.
Okay, thank you.
In the central section.
Gary Froseth from Westinghouse Broadcasting. To follow up on a question from Bill Hines about the astronauts' sleep, obviously they must be feeling a lot of excitement. Is there any type of special medication or whatever to put them to sleep at 4 o'clock, or is this going to be a natural sleep since they were up so early this morning?
It's going to be a natural sleep. No medication has been requested, and there are no plans to administer it.
Thank you.
They're all fighter pilots and they're used to going to sleep anytime they get an opportunity.
Okay, in the central section here.
Dave Dooling, Huntsville Times. One for Deke Slayton and one for John Yardley. Deke, when will the flight assignments be made for second and third and fourth OFT? And John, I believe you said you'd had a bet with a network newsman that it would fly in March. Have you paid off yet?
Crew assignments have tentatively been made for the second, third, and fourth flights, but I don't think anybody's ready to talk about them publicly until we get by the first flight.
We renegotiated that to April 15th, and I'm currently winning.
I hope the newsman knows that. Right here.
Pierre-Angelo and Cosmos Perez. I would like to know who will decide if it's necessary to have a return in a foreign countries, in Spain, in Hawaii, or in Japan. Is it a national decision or a shared decision between the astronauts and the ground controllers?
He's saying who makes the decision of whether to go to Spain or Japan or wherever.
Oh, okay, yeah. In the case of a contingency that requires immediate re-enter, the flight control team makes that decision based upon the time they think is left on a system that's failing and where you're located in the orbit at that particular time. I think it is highly unlikely we will ever land in any of those locations, to answer your question, but...
Okay, I'm sorry, right here in the central area, right there.
Thank you. Terry Milewski, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. I've got a question for Captain Duff about this low fog. I came a long way to get a picture of this thing taking off. Will I get it?
About 50% of the ground will be covered by fog tomorrow morning. It'll tend to be in the low-lying areas, small clearings in the brush and things like that. It'll be generally wispy in nature and shouldn't obstruct viewing of the actual launch.
Okay, up here in the west central area.
Yeah, this is for Jim Hirschberg, Harvard Crimson. This is for John Yardley and Deke Slayton. How optimistic are you that a successful mission will translate into increased funding? What do you think the political implications will of a successful mission?
Well, I don't know about the political implications, but a successful mission, which we're very confident of, will certainly give us the additional momentum to get the shuttle operational on our schedule of 1982.
Okay, in the central section.
Harry Pease, Milwaukee Journal. Could any of you gentlemen tell us what members of the astronauts' families are at the Cape and where they'll be at launch time?
No to both of those. I think the prime crew's wives are here, Harry, and I think they will be viewing from up north of the VAB in a special site up there, but I cannot tell you positively yes to either of those.
Okay, we do have a list of astronauts who will be here, but I don't have a list of where they'll all be watching from. Over here in the extreme west.
Peter Larson, Sentinel Star. Can you tell me, both John Yardley and George Page, what would be the impact of a major mishap, a major disaster, if you lost the spacecraft? I know it's just conjecture at this point, but you could address that.
Well, I want to lead that one off by saying we think that's very unlikely. Obviously, there is some risk. A lot of people think that would be the death knell of the U.S. space program. My personal feeling, it would be a big setback. It would probably cost us 2 years, but the shuttle would come back and the space program would come back and it would be a success. George?
John, I can't add much to that except it would be a heck of a blow to an awful lot of people that worked so hard on it.
Okay, down here in the front.
Yes, Bob Boudreau, KTRK in Houston for Mr. Yardley. There have been intimations that we would not, in fact, be as close to launch as we are if the shuttle had not had the long-range strategic implications for the Department of Defense. Can you respond to that?
Well, I think that that's probably partially correct. As you know, as everybody knows, because that's the first thing you ever hear in a broadcast, that we're overrun. We did need some money. In order to get the money, we did need the support of the Department of Defense and the administration, and we got both. Now, what would have happened if they had not been quite interested in the uses of the shuttle is conjecture.
Okay, while we're here, right here in front also.
Lynn Scher, ABC News. When the clock starts to go again at 4:20 this afternoon, aside from launch, what would be the next most critical time when we might look for something to happen, nothing to happen?
George?
You mean before or after launch?
Before launch, I beg your pardon.
Oh, okay. I guess when we pick up the clock at 12, the next real significant thing is the start of cryogenic loading at about T-minus 5 hours. We'll get a weather go for that hopefully around 10:30 tonight. We start the cryo loading. Everything goes well there. Crew will come out somewhere around minus 2 hours. That's always a highlight. We get them loaded on board. And then the traumatic part is the last 9 minutes when we're on the automatic ground launch sequencer.
Gary Whitaker.
For George Page, we keep asking the crew members every time we see them if they're getting excited. We're asking if they slept well. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this is your first manned flight. How are you sleeping and how do you feel?
I feel great.
Any special thoughts as you approach your first one?
Oh, well, I guess I'm a little more tense than on any previous ones. It's an exciting time. I'm sure you can appreciate that.
Okay, we're going to take one more here from the front and then go to other centers, and then we'll come back for a few at the back. Right here.
Mitzi Ox for WTVM in Columbus, Georgia. This is the first manned flight we've had in 6 years, and in light of the fact that the Soviets have been launching so many manned flights lately, is this one successful launch of the Columbia going to put us back in the feverish space race for America?
Oh, I think definitely it'll put us back in the race. I would hesitate to say that it puts us ahead in the race. I think what we have done is invest our limited resources in developing space technology far beyond what the Soviets have, while they've invested their available resources in a lot of flights and doing a lot of things. I think we are now in a position to advance rapidly with the resources we have and pass them.
Okay, do we have any questions from Johnson Space Center?
This is the Johnson Space Center. Stand by a moment. Any questions? Yes, please give your affiliation and name.
My name is Sharon Jones, and I'm from KMOL TV in San Antonio. And I was wondering if the shuttle has to land at Cape Canaveral, if you have to abort the mission, will Mission Control here in Houston control that, or will it go back to the Cape?
Well, the full flight will be controlled from Houston no matter where we land up until after touchdown. The Cape controls it until liftoff. Houston controls until the crew egresses at whatever point we land at.
Any other questions? That's all the questions from the Johnson Space Center.
Okay, how about the Marshall Space Flight Center?
Stand by one, please. No questions from Marshall.
Okay, how about Washington? Do we have any questions from Washington? If not, how about DFRC?
No questions.
Okay, one misnomer which comes up from time to time is the designation. Actually, if we have a return here, the orbiter would land at the Kennedy Space Center, not on Cape Canaveral. We're back to questions here, and way up in the top, Justy, there's a few, but let's take one over here while you're climbing the stairs, right here in back of you.
Mike Steckity, Sydney Morning Herald, Australia. Could you tell us the procedure for ditching the heavy fuel tank? Is that a manual operation done by the astronauts, or is that done automatically by computer? And what's the chance of it dropping on Australia rather than the Indian Ocean?
I think it can be done either way, and we have a backup manual mode. It can also be done through the computer. And the probability of it landing in Australia, we think is very, very low. We have intentionally set the inclination of this flight so in case it does overshoot and we have bigger dispersions than we planned, that it will in fact go through the strait south of the main Australian mainland. So even in that unlikely event, it would not impact Australia.
Okay, Craig Cavold, who's right behind you, has had his hand up for a long time from Av Week, and then we'll come down to the first row.
Now, one for Deke and then one for the medic. Deke, do you recall under mission rules what your current maximum abort gap is that you'd fly through?
We don't have an abort gap right this minute, Craig. We've got about a 6-second overlap, and that's an area we're vulnerable to AOA. From there on, we're at ATO.
And then for the medic, at about MET plus 30 minutes, when John and Kripp are starting to move around a little bit, the checklist has take anti-motion sickness medication. Is that a crew option or a request based on an assumption that an ounce of prevention is better than a bag of upchuck?
That's actually an ounce of prevention. Crippen will take his anti-motion sickness medication, and Commander Young will not. Commander Young, as you know, has had a lot of space experience and has never had even stomach awareness, so we feel he is not in need of medication. Since this is Pilot Crippen's first flight, he's going to take it as an ounce of prevention.
Okay, we're only going to have about 5 more questions. The first one over here in the front row.
Ira Flato, National Public Radio. Has any of the first family expressed interest in coming here now that President Reagan can't make it, and if not, is Vice President Bush coming?
As far as we know, no one is coming from the White House at the moment. We have not been notified that they are. We did have an expression from Vice President Bush that he was interested in coming. Okay, we'll take one in the back.
Hello, Kieran Prendeville, BBC Television. Can you tell me how soon after the shuttle clears the tower it will begin to arch over onto its back? And how does this compare with the old Apollo missions, and why is it flying with its back to the Earth at all?
I think it's around 15 seconds. As I said, I don't have a flight plan with me. My memory's not that good, but it's shortly after we clear the tower, we go into a roll program and then start a pitch program shortly thereafter. As for the reasons why we always launch upside down, I don't have a good answer to that. Yeah, you can see the horizon, of course, as we're plowing on into orbit. But from the crew's point of view, it makes absolutely no difference. Probably be a little uncomfortable going in sideways, but right side up or upside down is sort of academic.
Okay, we'll go to the East Central location.
Fabrizio Del Piero for the Italian news agency ANSA. I imagine you'll keep your fingers crossed from every moment of this mission, but what moments will you actually hold your breath? Is it the moment of re-entry when there won't be much to do except wait and see how the damn tiles behave?
If you're asking me, I'm not going to hold my breath. Never have.
I think what you really are asking is which parts of the mission are the most critical. And I would have to identify two. One is about 40 to 60 seconds into the launch, where we're going through the highest dynamic pressure and transonic Mach numbers. This particular launch configuration is substantially different than anything we've done before, and if you've got any problems, aerodynamic, structural, vibration, that's where it's going to happen. So that's an area of that we're going to be watching closely. Deke isn't going to be holding his breath, but that doesn't say everybody's not. Then on the entry, this is a brand new area. It's a big airplane, DC-9 size, that's entering from Mach 25 to Mach 0 in an environment that very little is known. We've had a few small-scale vehicles, 6, 8-foot vehicles, go this route, none this size. So that is a sort of an unknown that we're going to be watching closely.
Okay, in the west central part there.
My name is Seymour Rodman. I'm with the Space Topic Study Group. We are the philatelists that generally cover this type of mission. Now, we're perennial optimists, and you can be assured that our presence will indeed induce a successful mission. I would like to know if we're going to have a portable post office for us to mail our mail from the site.
I believe the answer is no. We'll have two more questions. One right from this section here.
Luke Hope, the Minneapolis Tribune for Deke Slayton. I wonder if you could give us just a brief look at how the flight will appear tomorrow different from a launch of an Apollo moon mission. What we should be looking for that will actually appear different.
Well, not an awful lot, I don't think, other than with the solids on board, of course. Previous missions, we've dumped the whole stage off, and you've normally seen the first stage burn out and jettison. And in the case of this flight, I think you will probably see both the solids burn out. I would also suspect, although I don't know, that once the solids leave, it's going to be very difficult to track from there on. Yeah, with the hydrogen-oxygen engines, you don't have the plumes there, you have with the solids. So, if you want my opinion, once those solids burn out, you're probably not going to see very much from then on.
Okay, in the back.
Stuart Harris, BBC Television, for John Yardley. I'd like to ask you, sir, whether you have any intimation at all of how soon after a presumably successful STS-1 the President will appoint a NASA administrator.
I don't have any information on when the White House is going to nominate a new NASA administrator, or even whether they're waiting until a successful flight.
Okay, a final question here in the center section.
Yeah, for the doctor, I'd like to ask him if he expects any difference in crew comfort or performance with the new mixed gas atmosphere.
No, I think they're going to be quite comfortable. I think we expect no significant problems at all. The mixed gas atmosphere, of course, is just like we're breathing essentially here, both in respect to pressure as well as content, so we don't expect any problems.
Does this cut down on any pre-launch activity on the part of the crew, pre-breathing, anything like that?
Yes, no pre-breathe necessary.
I believe we have one question in Houston. Johnson Space Center, do you have a question?
Yes, we do. Go ahead, please.
Patrick Boulay, San Antonio Light. Just in case there is a problem with tiles coming off during the launch, are they bringing any extra ones along?
Any extra what? About a year to 18 months ago, we did start a backup activity to have a tile repair kit capability. To do this costs us several thousand pounds of weight and really louses up the crew's timeline and what they have to do, so it's not a desirable thing to do. We did that at the time when we were still developing the tiles and assuring their reliability. We've now completed the certification, the qualification, the proof testing of all the tiles on the Columbia, and we are highly confident they'll have a successful reentry, and we are not carrying this kit.
I want to thank you all for coming. For those of you who still have questions, of course, the newsroom is open, and we have query people there at the desks to help you. Thank you.